ahead and get started. Thank you. We'll go ahead and get started. First of all, with any announcements, open session or public comments, do we have any? Okay, we'll move on to administrative, starting with roll call. So we have myself, Chris, I see Joe, and Skip, and Kevin, and Janet.
And I think Alfred's getting on. Is that his
Okay.
number?
I'm sorry, is Alfred on?
Yeah,
Okay. Did I miss anyone? Okay, so next item would be the approval of the minutes of the meeting from our last dredging task force meeting, which was January the 10th. Those minutes were issued a couple of weeks ago, so if you need, take a few minutes to refresh it, and then we can entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as is of 1/10/22.
I second that motion.
Okay. Go ahead and vote. Alfred,
He's muted.
Yeah, he's muted.
Aye.
okay, thanks. Kevin,
Aye.
Skip,
Aye,
Joe,
And Joe's muted.
Aye.
and Chris, aye. So minutes are approved 5-0. I had two other things administratively speaking, as reminders. There were some recent documents issued by Rebecca Eldridge, and if you have any comments, she would like them back by February the 28th. The two documents are the Code of Conduct, which I circulated to the task force on January the 14th, if that helps you find them. And then the second one, a little more recent, is the Comprehensive Financial Policy. And again, I issued that to the task force on February the 10th. So if you would take a look at those, if you have any comments, please get them back to Rebecca by the 28th.
You'll probably get some juices and liquids around the seal area. So you'll want to make sure to use a paper towel or something to clean those off. Because those
Not
we
muted.
got competition.
That might be Rebecca, you might be,
No, she's on mute.
she's on
It's
mute.
either Joe or Alfred.
Okay,
No, I mean, I hear somebody else.
yeah. Okay.
I mean, I can go back to mute, but
No, that's okay. All right, next item is an update on the permit and on the lobbyist activity. So, Joe, you have any updates on the lobbyist activity?
No, I don't. The only update I have is the notice from the Army Corps that what is now in 2 weeks, they're going to withdraw our application if certain conditions aren't met. But I have nothing else.
Yeah, I think the update to that, and I was hoping Will would be on because there was a recent call on it. And I gather the working call with the Army Corps, with GEI and Will. And I guess they worked through some of the issues. We obviously owe them some more information. They shared with us various positions we could take relative to questioning even their calculation on the mitigation credits and how that credit was derived, as well as possibly submit additional. So there'll be an update on that very shortly, I hope, and maybe by the end of the call, if Will phones in late, he can give us a more complete update than what I just shared.
I have a question on this.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I want to be very upfront. We've always been chasing our tail with Dan. I mean, everything comes in the last minute, the last day. You know, we never get stuff on time, even when he promises the stuff. I mean, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but, you know, if we're at a point now where we could be starting all over again, and we've spent quite a bit of time, certainly about a lot of money in this thing, I mean, I don't think that would be acceptable. You feel as though we're at a point where Dan is going to actually produce what he's supposed to in time? Talk to him?
Yeah, no, two things. First of all, it's a very legitimate concern that you share, Alfred. I think most, if not all of us, share the concern on timeliness or not so timeliness. I think that having had someone, Will and Dan with him and Alyssa, engage with the Corps, it's opened up an opportunity for that. So I think we need to push that issue among ourselves so that, you know, it's real easy to kick the can down the road for 2 weeks at a time, but we don't have the luxury of that. So I'm encouraged that dialogue has been established, but we certainly need to expedite it.
Yeah, but I mean, I want to be very upfront. Everything we've got back from GEI, or 90% of it, is either a month or two late. You know, the dredging stuff was supposed to go out months before it did. You know, I feel almost embarrassed that we're asking for help from anybody, and then the letter comes back from the Corps saying that we can't answer their questions.
Yeah, I gather the discussion was a different tone, but I'll tell you what I would offer, because I am concerned about expediting and timeliness. In conjunction with Will, we can reach out to within the GEI organization, for example, Russell and whoever the managing partner is of the Franklin office. It might be Russell, but I know we have at least two sources higher up within GEI that we can solicit their involvement and timeliness. And so
I think we've done that in the past too, though. I mean, I guess my question is if GEI is doing this stuff, why should we be up against the wall? And why should we ask his boss to, I don't want to say tell him to do his job, but expedite things quicker? I mean, the boss should be taking care of that on the dates that are already been stated by Dan.
Yeah, but Alfred, there's another issue too. We're part of the dredging task force. We entered in a contract with this, and yes, there is a case where they haven't met these dates, and it hasn't been, like you said, just this year, but it's the year before. I think it's still up to us to be certain that we have triggered them enough time before, or numbers of times, to make sure they're making progress and they will be answering things when we expect them to answer them. So I just can't feel that I'm part of the problem, that I didn't, make an effort to find out more of why we're not hearing the information, rather than just sitting back and waiting for Dan to come and give us the answer when he feels like he can.
Well, Skip, pick up on that good point. We had a meeting with the interim town administrator and assistant town administrator back in the late summer. And Alfred and I complained about GEI and their lack of meeting deadlines. We were on the record as sharing that and asking for help to put pressure on them. Then the October 27th a letter from the Army Corps came, which you were copied on last meeting, and GEI didn't respond for 3 months. And when I called and asked Dan, what was new, if he had heard anything, he denied receiving anything. And then a week later, our lobbyist revealed to us that in January, late January, that we lost 3 months. But I think a global view is important to look at here now, not only where we're at, but where we are headed if we're going to accomplish our goals. The first one is that GEI has not yet responded to the Army Corps. And with the documents I sent you, GEI is looking for town people to do a lot of the work with him. The likelihood of that being completed in 2 weeks, I think, is pretty small. The date of March 17th coming up is a really significant one. That's the deadline for the grant to the state of Massachusetts, the grant application for us to receive $2.5 million like we did last year. Okay, that's a 179-page document. And Chris and I wrote a lot of it last time, but a ton of it has to be written by the engineer. It's technical information. The third thing on GEI's plate is to do the design drawings for the actual dredging of Area 2 in the fall. So he's got 3 things on his plate with not a lot of oversight. We are volunteers. We cannot provide that oversight. You saw my memo to Will and Rebecca and Dan raising a red flag, and to Chris, and I didn't get any response from anyone on that. But I can share with you that this town has paid GEI $300,000, and it's getting worse.
So we need to go then up to the chain of command, up higher, and ask them for where is their effort going to be, so that we're not into this position of missing our goals. They've got paid by the $300,000. Hey, babes, come on, tell us what you're going to do and when you're going to meet these specific goals.
I agree, but we cannot do that. We're a volunteer committee. That has to come from town administrators who speak for the town and can withhold further payment.
If you like, I can take that as an action item to get up with Charlie and Rebecca and Will and push it forward with the GEI upper management, or to get them to push it forward.
I think that's what we have to do, Chris.
Okay, I
I
agree.
appreciate you for doing that.
Just let the record show that we've already done that twice. Okay, there appears to be some reluctance on the part of the town administration to put some heat on them. And that's ultimately their business. They work for the town. We are volunteers.
So, like I said, it will seal.
Okay, I'll follow up on that like I just described, and
There are some hacks out there.
hopefully we'll get it
Yeah.
Vacuum,
Chris, you
expedited.
got a hand raised from Dave Stamatis.
have the textured Mylar bags.
Dave.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Embossed bag. I gotta bump this back.
Dave, you on?
Regular bag.
Yeah, he has to unmute
muted.
himself.
No, I don't show him muted.
It's on my, yeah, there.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
I have a couple of questions. My first question is,
Just to get that, that light.
I don't see Will or Dan here at this meeting, and I just want to know, why aren't they here?
Dan normally isn't because he's not invited, and I expected Will was going to phone in today like he does all the other meetings, but so the only thing
Was there any explanation?
No, not tonight. He had accepted the invitation when it was issued, so I was expecting him. So I assume something has come up, but I don't know anything specific.
Going
A
on the
lot of, this
record,
is a lot
going
of
back a
information
year.
in this
excuse me,
meeting
one
that's
second,
coming out,
Dave.
and
Hold
I would,
on.
Wait, time out. You guys are talking on each other.
okay,
Dave,
go ahead, go ahead.
On the record, going back a year, Dan was invited and we told him, feel free to come at any time. So he has always had an open door. I'm sorry, Dave, go ahead.
I just don't
When I
understand
send
why,
out the invitation, I don't send it to him, quite frankly.
well, Chris, excuse me. I just want to ask, if this is such an important issue with the two key players that are in charge of making sure that this stuff happens, and they're not even at this meeting and we're still talking about it. I'm confused. As a taxpayer, as a boat owner, as someone who's tied into this community, it's concerning.
Well, I will check with Will to see why he didn't, because he normally does. With respect to Dan, I quite frankly didn't expect him to come, and nor did I invite him.
I would ask you in the future to invite him to these meetings, because these are kind of things would want his input and his explanation, and to hear him front up and center why he is or isn't doing what he's expected to do. Based on everything I've heard tonight, there's someone that's fell short with some of the expectations that, you know, we should have with this whole issue.
One of the things we've learned through the years about the Army Corps is that they work at a snail's pace. If you look at the two documents from the Army, from Dan, you know, dealing with the Army Corps request that's due in 2 weeks, there's a lot of work to be done there. And the Corps' process, which we have to follow, is for us to do the work, submit it to them for review. They take a while to review it, then send it back to us if there are issues, which we have to work on, and then get it back to them. It's a time process.
Well, okay. No, I mean, that's all understandable. I just don't understand why we're at where we're at right now with everything going on. You know, we should be moving forward with the next step of the dredging project, and, you know, I don't know.
The timely process that I just stated is certainly not making an excuse for them at all. It's raising another red flag. When I look at the calendar,
Right.
I think we're in trouble.
No, okay. Thank you.
Okay, the next area is the 2022 dredging plans. And one of the things that we've touched on in the past, and we need to come to grips with it, particularly as we put the documents together, as GEI puts it together. Question is, do we want to plan to dredge all of Area 2 in this coming season, or split it into 2 seasons, which would give us an extra year to go for an additional grant? It's really it's first and foremost a financial decision, I'd say.
Just to go back a couple of meetings, I have explored that possibility with our state representative and the Secretary of Economic and Housing Development, who actually reviews and awards the grants. And they have both confirmed, including the Secretary, that they have no problem at all if we do it in 2 years to be eligible for $5 million grants for the town instead of 2.5. So I look favorably upon that, especially in the context of looking at Area 2 and all 24 acres of it, and the possibility that has been raised in the past of not being physically able to accomplish all that dredging in one 3-month period.
Yeah, so if I'm hearing you, I think you're proposing or suggesting there are true advantages in doing it in 2 seasons, which I would hardly concur with. Did I interpret that right, Joe?
Yes, yes.
And how about anyone else? Any other feedback from people?
Sir, under a period.
Kevin?
I agree with Joe that it would be incumbent to do it over 2 seasons for the 5 million.
Yeah,
That several times, and what that's doing.
I would also voice that 2 seasons with, based upon some of the issues we've been having, might be the better route to go.
yeah.
We've had a good relationship with the secretary, the cabinet secretary. And one of his lieutenants told me that they've been impressed that we've been able to move along so far on schedule and comply with all the requirements. So that bodes well for the future.
Sorry, I had to press the start button.
Okay, so unless there are, I don't think we need a motion. I think we have
The direction we're going.
direction. Kevin?
But again, this all goes back to the point that Joe and David and Alfred and you all have been talking about. It all hinges on the paperwork that GEI gives to the Army Corps.
Agreed, yeah. That's obviously key to it, as are some of the other documents. The other documents are much more easily managed. They still require work. And actually, that's not a bad segue into the next category.
Chris, before you
You're
move on,
welcome.
just one footnote to that.
Yeah,
We have learned something since our last meeting. At the last meeting, the page we were on was that our lobbyist was in Washington, DC, fighting the Corps possible decision to make us engage in mitigation. What we have learned from that that Army Corps 30 October 27th letter 3 months ago is that the answer to that so far is no. And attached to that letter was 27 pages of requirements in order to meet their mitigation approval. And I encourage you to take a look at them because they're quite involved and involve a lot of work by the engineer. So that's what's going to be required for us to achieve mitigation to their satisfaction for them to issue the permit.
understood. And it's a work effort for sure. I do have a question about the lobbyist. The last call we had with him, he was still trying to have a meeting or for Senator Markey to have a meeting with the Assistant Secretary of the Army just to try and lay out the whole case at that high level. Do we know if that meeting has ever occurred and do we think it ever will?
I don't know that. The usual working pattern for the past 6 years has been for me to make contact with the lobbyist before meetings to get an update to be passed on to everybody. And that's always worked pretty well. I don't have that update because I have been banned by the town administrator from contacting the lobbyist directly. So
Having said that,
he has made it clear that that contact can only be done by Will, the TA, and the assistant TA.
yeah. Although having said that, Ray is usually pretty proactive when there is something noteworthy to report.
Well, he might very well have sent it to Will, and it may not have been passed on to us, because what the assistant TA put in writing to me in her directive was that all of that information can only go to Will, and then use her words, he will filter what needs to be passed on to this task force. I'm quoting her.
Liquid items, or some people do they actually put the machine over the counter so the bag
Okay.
hang over the counter.
That's kind of troublesome, huh? That we spend
Well,
all this time and effort doing
It's an
this.
open avenue that has served us very well for 6 years. He's been invaluable But, you know, I'm, at this point, I'm not allowed to continue to do that.
Well, I'll just interject that in the past 2 to 3 years, there's been a lot more strict regulations and oversight with all towns committees, everything like that. And this is the first time that I'm hearing that it's creating such a big problem. You know, this is the first experience because as you said, Joe, this has never happened before. We've always been able to communicate that way. So so Chris, are you going to contact the TA tomorrow
Yes, I'll contact them about the GEI issues and
and talk to them about this and just say, you know, dredging a task force has more influence than just a town committee. And you know, we've had a lot of new employees, and I think that Chris should reach out and say, what's going on? We've really got to get this going, and or Will. You know, again, I don't know where Will is tonight, but if he's, you know, he's obligated to also talk to us. You know, so I don't know if you want me to talk to everybody and whip him into shape, I will, but I don't know if I
Janet,
can.
I just want to look at the record for a minute because I know you helped to write the language of the charge of this committee. And in that language is to manage, and the select board capitalized the words manage. And the select board at the time made it very clear to the task force that they wanted them to manage the project, okay? At the early June select board meeting, select board member DeVasto brought up an issue saying that there was confusion and in the contacts when none existed, in my opinion. He made the motion and you and the others unanimously approved it, that all contact could only go through him. Now, Charlie Sumner and Rebecca recently sent me a copy of that approved motion, and that's what they're standing on.
Oh, this was last June
Yes,
or 2 Junes ago?
no,
All right, so that's not really so this is unintended consequences of something like this happening. Because volunteers were, okay,
yes, they were. And it
Yeah.
was working. Look at the record of achievement. The channel got dredged. The inner
no,
harbor.
I have no complaint, I don't, okay, so I don't know, I'm trying to remember as we're talking, it's hard for me to remember exactly what the references is. Will you send me, will you copy me on what you sent? So what was that in reference to? Was it in reference just to dredging?
It was in reference to the dredging task force specifically. And if you look at the tape, and I
Yeah.
can send you the minutes on it, if you look at the tape, that it was initiated out of the blue by Mr. DeVasto, who said there were problems that I was not aware of, and I don't think anyone else was. And he made the motion that any and all contact, and I'll send you the motion, was to go only through the harbor master, okay? That
All
was
right, now I
followed
remember,
up.
yeah.
That was followed up in writing to me by the TA, the interim TA and the assistant TA. And the assistant TA used the word filter, that Will was going to be the judge of what we receive and what we don't receive. Consequently, we didn't receive the October 27th letter from the Army Corps until 3 months later, and it wasn't given to us by the town, it was given to us by the lobbyist. So there's been a breakdown. And the way it is structured, I'm in violation of a directive from the 2 town administrators if I don't follow that.
Yeah, all right.
So, hey,
Yeah, I know what you're talking about now. All right. I'm sorry I voted for that, but I know that there was some problems in a number of places.
here.
All right, so Chris, do you,
So,
yeah,
Joe, when I was on, I mean, I've been on it since the beginning of this task force.
So
And when I brought in the Barnstable County Administrator to talk to us about dredging operations that could help us with the county. And then that sounds like this DeBosto statement means that I'd be in trouble like you.
Well, it takes a village, and yeah, you would be in trouble. I keep telling them it takes a village of us, but they don't agree. I appreciate and understand that none of them have ever managed a $20 million project before, a dredging project. But for those of us who have done things like that, Skip, including your gesture, which was valuable, more information we can get, the better. We can't do it anymore. It has to be filtered through one person and a judgment made on what we can do and can't do. And I think that's in violation. That's in violation of our charge, which says in capitals to pursue and manage.
We're one of the volunteer groups that were set up by the Board of Selectmen, which is the top of the column of the which way the town's going to be led. And
yeah,
we're not the only one, because there's other, if you just look in the annual report, you'll see that all of the different committees and boards are even go on to the website. So it's not just us, it's all these other ones. So somehow there must be a clarification from the town administrator that we have, that we're paying a good salary to, substantially good, and the two cohorts he hired that we're paying well to it. I know they have a task that they have to see through, and if somebody else came in front of them to misguide it, they would see the same thing that we're seeing that they've put in place. And they need then to stand up, at least the town administrator, and clarify us and why he feels this will help us achieve our goal for the town, which invested $7.5 million already to do this dredging.
When I did that, Skip, his response was to send me a copy of the motion passed by the select board, okay? And one of the things I never got to say to them is that this task force is made up of people from various disciplines, from skills, okay? Chris is an engineer who's done dredging projects before. I've spent 30 years in state government, program development, grant writing, management, and so forth, overseeing projects. You know, we all bring something to the table, and unfortunately, we're being filtered on that and told, you know, that we cannot do a lot of that. And I say that's in conflict with our charge.
yeah, it is. Okay. So I would also say that it would, this is where, yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking of the history, you know, and I think Will should be answering this, seeing if he's getting the information and if it's not coming from him to this task force. So that would be one of the problems. That would be my first problem that I would address. So I
Other
can talk,
problem, Janet, is that the town will, the TA, assistant TA, they are not putting pressure on GEI to make
Yeah.
good on their contract. And we feel we're really behind the 8 ball now.
well, you know, the town's behind the 8 ball in so many ways, and the assistant TA is, they're working really hard. She got hired into this in the middle of it, and I suppose that there's a lot of areas, because there's been a lot of change in personnel, that is kind of a mess. So I wonder if we should have with the assistant town administrator, Will, us, and really a Zoom call with GEI and say what's going on, and whomever the contact is with maybe Marky's office, that we should have a Zoom call kind of soon and sort this out, because it seems like it needs to be sorted out.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with Marky's office.
No,
okay?
but if there's something timely they need, we would need, and,
Janet, I've been on top of that. I've been
Okay.
handling the political end of it, okay?
okay,
That's
okay,
why we're paying a lobbyist. He
yeah,
meets regularly with Marky's people, with Keating's, with Warren's people, okay?
okay,
That base is covered. But again, send you the motion that you passed in June. That's what the TA and assistant TA are hanging their hat on, and they're
yeah,
right.
I know,
They put it back to me. Now,
Yeah.
what the select person who initiated that motion offered it in the context that there were problems, that we weren't accomplishing our goals. That's how it was presented to the select board. And he then made the motion that that problem could be solved by everything going through Will. And from that point on, there's been problems. If
Okay,
Skip
I
has a
hear
good,
you.
if Skip has a good contact with the county commission and can bring in that kind of a resource, we need to hear that.
Yeah, okay,
David,
I know what you're saying.
We can't do that now. I can't talk to the lobbyists. I've been talking to them for 6 years. Invaluable information and
Yeah,
help.
I know. I mean, I'll call people tomorrow and see what they're saying or what their reasons are and what we can do about it and get it going ASAP.
David, you
Communication.
have your
great
hand
guy.
up. David, you have your hand up?
Yeah, he did. Dave Stamatis.
Yeah.
Trying on you. You got me?
Yeah.
Yeah. We do now.
Thank you. My question here is that I've listened to a lot of what Joe Abadale has spoke of with regards to his connection with the lobbyist and the importance of the lobbyist being able to be connected with all the information that we need to glean to him so that he can appropriate the funds for us. And now I'm hearing that Joe has basically been muted from by the town not to be able to communicate with him anymore. There's a big problem here. I have a real problem with this.
Yeah, well, as I said, I don't want to interrupt you, but we're already talking about this. Obviously, there's a glitch, unintended consequences, and I will.
Can I ask you, who am I speaking with exactly?
I'm on the select board.
Okay,
Janet
thank you.
I'm the liaison
Okay,
to
Joe.
the dredging
so Jen-
committee,
so-
and I've
yep.
been on the dredging committee for 6 years.
So please go ahead with your, I apologize for interrupting. I just want to know who I was talking with.
Yeah. So, these are things, yeah. So I'll see what I can find out and what I can fix tomorrow, Joe.
Thank you.
I certainly hope so. As far as I'm concerned, from where I'm listening to this whole meeting, there's a huge disconnect and a big problem. And you know what? The two biggest elephants that should be in the room tonight aren't here, and I have a problem with that.
And what is your connection to the dredging committee?
My connection is I'm a commercial fisherman in this town. I have a slip and a mooring. I'm on the Marina Advisory Committee,
Okay,
and I have a deep care and concern for this community. And I want to make sure that things are done right. That's my concern, Janet.
okay, I got it. Thanks.
My pleasure.
Okay, move on to funding grants. A couple of items on that. I checked the other day on the 11th, and the new application has not yet been posted. I do expect it'll come out shortly. Although it's a very lengthy application for our 2022 submittal, most of the information will be identical. We'll update some of it like we did last year. We'll get some shellfish updates from Nancy. So as soon as the application is available, we can start on it immediately. Last year it was in fact due on or about March 17th. It varies between mid-March and end of March. So as soon as it's posted online, we'll start work.
Just a footnote on that, in the interest of the committee having all of the information. That document, 179 pages of it, a ton of it is engineering, technical work that is going to be this year specific to Area 2, unlike last year, okay? And they have a very strict deadline. Last year, it was March 17th at 4 o'clock. Chris and I were working, spending days on that, leading up to it. We didn't get the final document from the engineer until 3:30 on that day. And it went in at 3:45. That just gives you a flavor of the kind of pressure that we worked under in the past. Funding, Chris? Any other funding?
No, I don't know of anything, for example, SEC that we could go after this year. We already were awarded design cost for the 2022 dredging. So right now, the only grant that I envision going after is the dredging one.
Will be going after any of these grants that were offered through the county?
Not with respect to dredging. There would be some other ones through Seaport Economic Council, perhaps, as different projects move forward. Okay, next one is future plans about sedimentation and future maintenance, and maybe make this quick. We did have a call on January 28th with the Herring River Restoration Project. And to summarize, yes, they would be very interested in black mayonnaise. Obviously, this is several years down the road for them as well as for us. The quantity that they could utilize over the years is more than what we're going to be dealing with in the next several years. We'll have a follow-up call with them, but I'd say in general that the way the work scope will shake out is that they will determine how much they need and when and where, and they'll share that with us, upcoming in the next, quite frankly, years. I think it'll be our mission to figure out how to get it to them. And, we'll have to have the permits to do that. They'll have to have the permits to place it. But obviously that's a broad overview, but we'll continue to work it with Herring River.
I've been told by a representative of the Buzzards Bay Coalition based in New Bedford, Massachusetts, that the state regulations prohibit materials such as black mayonnaise, which is actually, the term should be black custard, as it came out of the Coastal Studies Group up in Provincetown at the last harbor management meeting. But that the amount of material that could be put onto these marshes is less than a half an inch or less per time. It's not large quantities like 6 inches or 10 inches. And the regulations prohibit it under Massachusetts laws regulating marshes at the present time.
Yeah, that's a good point, Skip. That came up on the call. There seems to be general consensus that the state is starting to warm up to the idea, and particularly as projects are completed, albeit in Rhode Island, Bristol, Rhode Island, that the state will probably be getting on board because of the nutrient value. So, well,
the largest funded project in the state of Massachusetts was the New Bedford Harbor. And that went through billions of dollars in federal funding. And they had to take and move that material in cars and gondola cars out to Michigan to have it disposed of. So it's not so far an easy process for people to even think about going into that area.
Well, I think that material, that would suggest that it was hazardous material. And
it definitely was.
We're on a Superfund site, so not uncommon at all for Superfund sites to have to transport it across the country.
I don't think it's written in the laws yet that you can deposit X number amount of this material, of this mayonnaise, the dark material, because I don't think there's any areas in the Wellfleet other than us that have that material.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. True.
You're vacuum sealing a ton of poultry. I would
I have
definitely.
a question for you, Chris, if you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead, Alfred.
Under the Seaport Economic Development, is there a date on those when the grants have to be submitted, or is that a revolving date?
On the Seaport Economic,
Yes.
they have 2 dates. They have,
September and first of the year, January, I think is what the.
yeah, no, it's a little bit later. It's November for February review, and it was, I think, June for August review.
What you're going to be doing.
So are we allowed to, no, didn't say that correct. How often can we apply before we get in trouble? I mean, is this something we can apply for every round of grants?
As far as I know, yes.
They'll cover some of the cost of the engineering design. But in order to submit a grant to them, and they got money to reimburse us for engineering designs, they want detailed engineering designs that are completed and sent to them on time with the grant application. So that's another thing that the town would be looking to GEI for.
Yeah, no, that's we've been awarded the grant for the 2022 design. So the design costs for Area 2 is what we were awarded last year. So that's already been approved. That's why I don't envision applying for any SEC grant this year with respect to dredging. Now, SEC is very focused on infrastructure.
Yeah, they do a lot of marina infrastructure. So an application could be made for some marina infrastructure work.
Alfred, was there something more specific that?
My question is, and because first of all, I don't believe we should give anything else to GEI. But I mean, if we have small projects, the local engineers can do, you know, like coastal engineering works for the town. And I'm not supporting any of these people. Please, it's not like it matters to me who we use. That's not why I'm saying this. But I mean, if there's grants that we can apply for twice a year, I believe we should start on that track, because the town of Wellfleet's probably going to be out of money when we figure out where our fiscal crisis is, and sooner or later, the state's going to say because of COVID they're out of money. So I mean, to put things off in the future. But my concern was if we apply too often, we get nothing. But it doesn't sound that way if they put these out every 6 months.
Yeah, no, I would not hesitate. If we have projects we can identify and again, team with somebody else, by all means, we should go after grant money.
So
I've learned that the marina infrastructure grants that they have awarded to towns in the past have been spearheaded by the harbor masters. Most recently in Harwich, that's Aquatucket Harbor.
Well, but see, I was under the impression, and I don't know why, but I thought if we applied too often, we weren't going to get anything. But if they're doing them
not at all
on a twice-a-year thing, I mean, even if it's, you know, and I have no idea where this is going to go. It's just the fact that I think that maybe we should look for some other resource to be applying for our grants other than GEI, or relying on GEI to apply for our grants, because I've lost faith in them. I mean, my honest opinion is, and I hate to say this, I think we've missed the window for dredging this time.
I don't think so, but it's tight. I mean, it is on the cusp, and it's certainly cause for concern, but we'll keep plugging away.
I believe we will, Chris, but I think that because of the amount of area, or even if we cut it in half, and it's a new project, you know, all the other projects we've done have been previously dredged within the last 20 years. So, I mean, I think I'm concerned. I think everybody's concerned. But it's just the fact that, you know, if we don't keep the ball rolling, we can be in trouble. But I mean, what is our actual absolute date before we're out of the picture for dredging? Maybe we should be working backwards from that.
Well, Alfred, to answer that question, it was 30 days from the 30-day notice of withdrawal from the Army Corps, which was on February the 4th. We're now looking at 2 weeks to the end of that. And I don't think none of us have any knowledge as to what effort is being made with the Corps to meet that deadline.
But my question is, let's say we meet that deadline. How many more hurdles are we going to be into? Because they're out there. We don't see them. We don't know. And that's just the system. I mean, nobody can tell what comes back for the hurdles. But I mean, we were further along last time than we are now, and we counted back how many days we had for it to go out to bid and when they could start. I guess I'm just quite concerned.
Yeah, the bid process, I think, is very manageable. I'm not as concerned about that. It's all about the permit and the grant.
One of the things that we learned from GEI last time around was the engineer told us that you should always have the permit done by the early spring to get the bidding process started, because you're then in the position of getting the good contractors rather than being later into the summer when you get the leftovers. That came from GEI.
And yeah, and the bid package would go out like it did last time with a conditional permit for Army Corps, so that we would still be able to go out for bid in timely fashion. All the other permits are in place. There is one that expires on August the 22nd, which is on our list for renewal.
But the Army Corps, there's no guarantee that they would give us a conditional permit, given the battle that we're locked into with them now.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's the Army Corps permit that's the key to it. That's the biggest stumbling block.
They both, the A100 does also have an accessory port there on the side. It has
Okay, I guess the other thing, again, briefly, sand and shoaling in the area off the jetty. Reached out to Hillary to try and schedule a discussion about permits and what permits are required. She was targeting this week, but has not yet confirmed. So, and again, just as a refresher course, permit drives the schedule. Barnstable County will put you on the schedule. They sometimes get cancellations. And so if you're standing there with your permit in hand, then they'll squeeze you in. Again, we're talking beach nourishment, clean sand, either pumping it back from whence it came, or Alfred had a suggestion last time, even if we pump it into the parking lot and then it could be hauled off. So those are a couple of the options, but first and foremost is to figure out and obtain what permits are necessary for the beach nourishment.
check in for, I think that's it on the comparisons of the two. Were there any other questions?
And that's,
I think going back, Chris, if I'm not mistaken, Will agreed to coordinate that with Hillary.
yeah, he did. And we were targeting this coming week to have a discussion. Hillary had proposed Thursday, but had not yet confirmed a time.
I want to do context. So I was going to see.
Okay, anything else before we move on to next meeting?
Can we get both of these on at the same time? Cool. All right. I'm going to get some assistance in here.
All right, next meeting, staying with Monday nights, would put us either March 14th or 21st.
I think we better go earlier than 21st
Yeah,
with the
Go 14th.
situations we have.
You want to go 14th?
I do.
Okay.
So maybe if I have some information from our TA and assistant TA and Will and stuff about lobbyists and grants, we could call a meeting earlier. if need be.
Yeah, we can do that. We'll target the 14th for now, and if we want to adjust it, that's fine. It's
Yeah.
fairly easy enough to do.
And on the count of three, you were
So
gonna.
like in the minutes, Chris, from the past, we have listed things in there for various individuals to do things and make calls. Is that something you could put out, a task list of something so that maybe we get reports back from what Kurt said that he was gonna, or somebody was, I think you said you were gonna talk to Hillary. There was gonna
Yeah.
be.
Yeah,
He's
we
gonna
could,
do
what that
something.
was, Skip, what you're referring to is what we had the action item list. And yeah, I could reinvigorate that.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Side,
To give something for Kevin to do besides watch BC hockey.
very good result. Right.
Skip,
We didn't have
to
any
follow up
questions.
on that,
Double check, make sure we.
I got in writing that directive from the administration that any contact like that with a resource person like Hillary has to go through Will. So Chris has to initiate that
Right, I think we're good
through
to go.
Will.
Please.
Okay, no
So
problem.
this is basically gonna be a list of what Will needs to tie into.
No, not necessarily. I'll give you an example. I think on the mitigation list, we've already had some, it's identifying possible sites, for either dewatering or for thin layer depositions. So some of those things are already on the list. Kurt Felix has been looking at it. He's been trying to, and I think that is still within the instructions that have been issued. So to me, that's an example where work assignments could proceed.
That handy, just in case you need to reference it. And this is-
Something I wanted to add is that when we had a week or two ago, the meeting with the Herring River people, and there was the naturalist, he's a biologist for the seashore, and was Brian Carlstrom also on that?
Yes, he was.
Yeah, and it was a really, really good meeting in that people have always said how hesitant the seashore is for any changes, but I felt between the seashore, the town, and the Herring River, we were all on the same page with the black mayonnaise, wanting to do something, and even the seashore didn't say we won't be able to use that. Like they didn't, right? They just kind of accept that we'll be able to put it on wherever it needs to go. So that's a nice bright note to.
Yeah, and also Janet, in one of the documents I sent to everybody, it is stated that the Army Corps, when we gave them our master list of about a dozen or so projects, Herring River project was on there,
Yeah,
and the Army Corps rejected it. The only two they would even consider was the Hilda and the Wellfleet Conservation Trust. And again, looking at their process, because they hold all the marbles, looking at their process, we have to submit that 27 pages of requirements about those projects. They take their time to review it and then get back to us. That's how they work.
yeah.
So that way it can run a seal cycle.
All
We
right.
good for that date?
Once it's complete, you'll
That's
notice.
Yeah,
14.
that's right, 14th, 7 o'clock.
So now that we.
And that takes us to motion to adjourn.
I appreciate everybody attending and their input. Thank you.
We're making just a
Well,
seal.
thank you, guys.
Motion to adjourn.
Getting
I
there.
make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I
Kevin,
second
thank you.
that.
Skip, thank you.
Actual
Alfred,
play it right here. And then we're gonna go ahead.
He's for it.
we're voting, Alfred.
Oh, I unmuted him.
Alfred, we're voting.
I'm voting to go home, yes.
Okay, Kevin.
Yes.
Yeah, Skip,
Yeah, I.
Joe,
Aye.
Once the seal
Chris, aye. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Have
you.
a good night.